It's free, baby.
Mhm.
Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to YouTube Model Builders. I know this is Thursday night, but we've got the Barry and Mike Tech Show tonight. We've had to do a little rearranging on the schedules, and yes, I did post the times wrong, so we are starting an hour early tonight from what we normally do. That's kind of my fault there. I didn't pay attention to the times in the post. But anyhow, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules, and I promise from this point on they will be right. But you can check the schedules for the Tuesday, Wednesday show and the Saturday live show. Thursday shows and the Saturday show are 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, except for tonight before AJ makes a smart comment about it. And Tuesday and Wednesday is the 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. There have been a couple of changes for May and June. The Tuesday shows for May and June we've had to reverse those, so the fine scale will be on the second Tuesday, and then whatever schedule for the fourth Tuesday will be there, because track planner is the 23rd of this month
Yes, I
instead of the
believe so.
9th of this month. So be sure and check your schedule. But new schedule will be posted towards the end of June, so for the rest of the year, and that will be set in stone. I guarantee it. Maybe. Yeah. Because everybody knows the Thursday night show is nothing but slightly controlled chaos. But anyhow, I'm going to quit table dancing here. And let me get back over here, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Barry and Mike for their MRR Tech Show. Take it, Barry.
Oh, good evening, y'all. Like Johnny said, tonight's a little unusual show where we moved the tech show to Thursday night for this month. And probably going forward later in the year, we will be permanently putting ourselves on one Thursday night per month. Tonight, we're going to sit and do something a little different. We're going to try and just do some general tech talk and answer any people's questions they have on tech, so about model railroading. So if anybody wants to post their questions into the live chat, we'll be looking to answer them if we can. So,
Or at least
what's
talk
it?
about them.
Or at least talk bad about them or something like that.
We could talk about, if they're a dumb question, we can say how dumb they are. No, we would never do
We
that.
would never do that, at least to their faces. All righty. So, a little quick update about my buddy Mike here, who is in Dallas right now.
Well, Plano.
Or Plano.
Yeah,
We'll be
it's
coming
outside
back
Dallas.
home here to Rooston, Pennsylvania once more. So I'm flying down there on the 31st, and we'll be road tripping him back home. So he'll be back close to home where I can torture him even more. So
That, and I wouldn't have to worry about this crazy time zone differentials too. It's like,
Yeah,
oh
really.
yeah, it's an hour ahead or an hour behind. I don't know.
all right. So what you been doing interesting tech-wise lately, Mike?
Oh, geez, I've been ignoring tech, dude. Now, I took a trip out. There's got a place in Plano, a little museum, and it's like they have this little inner urban car. That's the only real artifact they have there, and it's an old depot. Actually, a depot too is original, and it was an inner urban line called the Texas Electric Line.
Oh, okay.
And I went and visited that today too, and that was pretty interesting. So I got in the car and I looked around, and what was interesting about the car too, it had a lot of interesting features that for a car that was built in 1911 that were kind of advanced for the time. And basically the construction was a wooden frame car, but it had metal siding and stuff too, metal sheathing on it. So it was kind of a composite car too, but the metal was on the outside. It also was an RPO car, so it had a railway post office in the back, which is interesting. Yeah, and I was looking at the seat. They had some of the original seats. What happened with this specific car that ran there? It ran for, maybe 20, 30 years, whatever, from 1911 to 1930s, 1940s.
Hmm.
Got sold to this guy, turned it into a shack, and then,
Jeez.
basically, around 2000, they tracked the shack down, and the guy gave it back to him, and they restored it. And
Oh,
he
very
also
nice.
he had some of the original seats, which I thought were fantastic looking seats. And the one thing the guy was telling me that the car in 1911 was capable of doing 60 miles an hour,
Wow.
which is about the same speed as the DART train that's right across the street from them.
Is that was that an overhead wire or a third rail
Yeah,
set?
yeah. Actually, it was kind of funny because it had two poles on the back, so it looked like it
Oh,
was
okay.
it. At one time, it used two wires, like the trackless trolleys. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
using the wheels for ground, and eventually that changed,
Wow,
so it only
gotcha,
used
gotcha.
one. Yeah, so they only used one now, but it was a real interesting little car. But just the technical specifications. The other thing was it was a smoking car too. So if you look on
Oh,
the roof line, they had these big circular, kind of like like on your grill, you have that little circular thing for the
yeah.
vent. Yeah, they had those on the roof.
Oh, you could open it up and let the air out. Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
that was pretty cool. I'm like, wow, I didn't even think of that. And then the other thing I thought was interesting, was really cool, was that on every window pillar they had this little square, this
Right.
metal square, aluminum square. It was kind of roughed up, and that was the striker plate where you could do your light anywhere matches. You just smack it
Eh,
on there and light your
nice.
matches, right? I mean, I was
I love little things like that.
fantastic
We could
detail.
do like a train trivia show like that one night. Just to have something totally different to talk about.
Yep.
Well, we actually have our first tech question of the night. Tony
Okay.
Moreno wants to know what's the best way to do railroad crossing lights, also the most easy, other than an Arduino. Uh, well, at that point, I would think the easiest thing to do would be to either buy a commercial system, or else you could use a simple logic circuit to do the flasher, and
Oh yeah.
then
There's all
just
sorts of flasher
yeah,
circuits.
there's
Yeah.
all kinds of little flashers. You could use an LM555 timer chip to make a flasher, and then you could also go ahead and just trigger it by a variety of methods. I mean, the most
Yeah. If you
popular one is what, infrared, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, you could use like the for the trigger mechanism. You can use the photoresistor. Use excuse me, infrared. You could use reed switch. I mean, whatever you want.
Yeah, magnetic reed switch. Yeah,
Um, but you're right. For the circuit itself, the actual do the flashing, you could use a 555. You could use a pair of transistors back to back.
yeah, that's really old school. Yeah,
That's kicking it old school. It could be like an analog flasher, and you basically adjust it with the capacitance and the resistor in the system. But that's a
yeah,
pretty cheap one. I
yeah.
mean, I think.
That you can do things like that for pennies and components. So
Well, I mean, you don't even have to worry about doing the math and anything, because you could go on eBay and get one of those boards. It's like basically a little PCB board that's
yeah,
already done up for you, and the components for about $1. All you have to do is
yeah.
solder it together.
Yeah, if anybody can solder, there's a lot of cheap stuff available on eBay. Even if you buy components in your own perf board, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, using a 555 chip and a handful of components for like your trigger, it's pretty tried and true method. I mean, it's you can probably do it as cheap as using something like I wouldn't use an Arduino for that, because to me that's overkill. You're not going to save much money, but a pickaxe, like which we've already demonstrated, the simple programming for a pickaxe to do a crossing flasher, and there's only a handful of extra components besides the chip itself, which costs you a couple of dollars. So either way would be easy enough to do, but with using a 555, there's no programming involved. You just build the circuit, hook up an
Mm-hmm.
infrared trigger or magnetic reed switch trigger or whatever to it, set capacitor value for your timing, and then it works like a charm.
Hmm.
Where it helps to do logic like that is that you can set that up with a logic chip so that you have your one trigger on the entrance and another trigger on your exit. So as long as one or the other is clear, it flashes. Only when they're both dark would it not flash. That way it's bidirectional and independent of train length as well.
Right.
So,
And then you have to consider the case if you have two tracks you want to protect or whatever,
yeah.
and
So,
other situations like that. But I mean, the reality is you want to you know, make sure that you don't get any false positives, and you also don't want the thing turning off all the trains in the middle of the track.
yes, that's why infrared is probably your best because it's less likely affected by the room as far
Hmm.
as the ambient lighting, like a photo resistor would, or even a CDS photo cell.
Yep.
And infrared, you could hide the transmitter receiver pair in a pair of bushes by your crossing, and no one would know they were there. So
That's true, and they don't really. Yeah, like you said, they don't depend on the ambient light. There's no like an LED type of system where you don't see any extraneous light or anything. It's all invisible
yeah,
unless you take
uh,
pictures of it. Sometimes digital camera picks it up, but
yeah. Well, here's another little question from Andrew Gilmore. He says, "I plan to build a module using 100 millimeter by 18 millimeter for the frame. I'm assuming plywood, covered by 3 millimeter ply, then topping off with 30 millimeter foam." That's not a bad way of doing it, Andrew. I mean, I've done much like that for our club. We originally we would use 3/4 inch, just regular like pine boards, and then put a 1/4 inch like Luan plywood on top, and then top it with a piece of foam. And that seems to work pretty well. The only thing you got to worry about with mods like that is to protect your edges, because if you move it around like ours is portable, the edges of foam get banged up. Now, when we built this layout 22, 23 years ago, we didn't think of things like that. So we've hence learned what the problem is. So, I mean, I would definitely, at least on the front and back, consider putting like a 1/4 inch masonite for a fascia up to the top of the scenery level. And you could even use it for a profile board that way,
hmm
you know.
yeah, you know, I saw a model railroader too, model railroad video. What they do is they build like a box, like a little tray, and then they stuff the foam in the tray. So it's basically instead of putting the foam on top,
Oh, yeah.
it's they shove it in, and it's protected because the walls of their tray is the same height as the foam board.
Yeah, Mike's got a good point there, Tony. So what you do is, or if you're Andrew, if you build the frame, you put a cleat on the ends and on the front and back that's recessed by the depth of your foam, and then you
Hmm.
just drop the foam board down in there and glue it in place. And then to build up your scenery, you put more foam on top of that. That way, you can actually, if it's a small enough module, you can eliminate using the plywood on top and just recess the foam in there. If you need to, put a cross brace in the middle of the module itself, and that will make a nice lightweight module that way instead of having the plywood top.
Hmm. Yeah, essentially the plywood top becomes the plywood bottom.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
and if you want to see the videos, I mean, it's just look for like Dave Pop T-Track module. That's what he was basically
Yeah,
doing before.
yeah, yeah. So here's another question from MHO Junction. It says, what kind of floor would you find in a 1930s engine house? A cement or wood? Um,
I would say cement or dirt.
Yeah, I mean, you probably could find wood
But
floors in here, but cement was in use back then. So,
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, cement was around in the 20s too, and it's pretty popular. I mean, especially where we modeled too, the Northeast U.S. And of course, being from, Pennsy modelers were spoiled because Pennsy roundhouses definitely would add cement.
yeah,
Now,
yeah. I mean,
if you're somewhere else like in the West or wood's more prevalent, you probably would see a wood floor.
that's what I was thinking. Like small short line railroads,
Hmm.
uh, backwoods railroads, especially like logging railroads, where it's temporary things that they come up with. You know, um, heck, even the B&H engine house up in Hammondsport, New York. That thing's older than dirt. It has been used since the 30s. I think it had like a dirt floor in it, other than like where the tracks were. There was an inspection pit and buried in concrete. So, yeah, that
Yeah, I
would
know.
make.
I saw a video one time. There's a old engine house. It's in a museum, I believe, but it's got a wood floor, and the turntable is inside, and it's wood too. But what they
Yeah.
did was they elevated all the tracks inside on an angle.
Okay.
So they used the tractor to push the engines up on that stationary track off the turntable.
Okay.
But when they got ready to pull them out, they just released the brakes and let the engine coast down onto the turntable.
Oh, wow.
And that thing was
Interesting.
so free moving, two guys just their foot on the turntable pushing, and it would rotate around.
Yeah, there's a lot of hand-powered turntables in places. I mean, still to this day, the turntables at the ends of the San Francisco cable car line I mean, they're small, obviously, but there's a wood pole sticking out of the ground. The conductor gets off, grabs the pole in his hand, and just pushes the turntable around, locks it in place, and then gets back on the car, takes off.
Yeah, they call those Armstrong turntables.
Yeah,
Strong
really.
arms. And the other thing too is the Baltimore and Ohio Museum in Baltimore has the exact same setup that Johnny just described too, with the wooden floor and the wooden turntable, where the pit's covered with basically a turntable. It's like the old Atlas turntable.
Oh, right. It's like a disc in the middle.
You can't see the floor. Right.
AJ just put out there that it was the B&O Railroad Museum.
Yeah, and actually, that particular shop wasn't an engine house. That was a car shop. It was built in the late 1800s, 1870s, I believe.
Yeah, that's been around for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tony Moreno just said he has the New Jersey, I guess it means the New Jersey International crossing lights, and could that be used with track power? Well, if you're using DCC, I would say not without a bridge rectifier and a filter circuit, because just remember, folks, DCC track power is totally different from DC track power. You can use it, but you're drawing current from the supply for your locomotives, and it is actually square waved, high frequency switched AC. So it's switched so fast it mimics DC, but it will damage electronics that are repowered by DC. So the safest bet is to use a bridge rectifier with a filter capacitor on the output to make sure it is pure DC. But I still would strongly suggest using a true DC power supply for any applications that require DC power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ron Berry said Spencer, North Carolina, has a hardwood block floor too.
Oh, interesting. Really? Yeah.
Well, we'll have to find out and give you a report.
Yeah, we're probably going down there on our trip back, so we're going to hit a bunch of rare museums on our way back from Dallas. So yeah, that should be real interesting. And here we have David McKay. Do any of you guys use 3D printing for your buildings and bridges and such? Well, I've never used it for buildings. I've used it for components of things. Well, I did the 3D design of a concrete radiation cask for a flat car for Mike to mimic the Lionel component, and we've had them printed in shapeways. But yeah, I've known people that have used it to make buildings, especially in the smaller scales.
Mm-hmm.
You can go all over shapeways. There's a guy, I don't know if it's available in HO or not, but I think it's N scale. He has a whole series, blocks worth of Philadelphia row homes and businesses that you can buy, and the end buildings, the center buildings, you name it, and you can build a whole city block all out of 3D printed buildings.
Yeah, no, I think that's like you get and he has them in Z and HO as well. And the thing is too, there's a lot of different rules you have to follow when you're using the printer to print building components too. The orientation of the walls
Yes,
really matters. because if you were to put like clapboard siding on like normally oriented, it would have to build all the raft to support it, and it would just be ugly, and you have to clean it. So you have to basically have it print the building upside down. So it's kind of an interesting challenge to do that. I guess the thing is, if what the best bet is to do is to build it yourself by hand and see what it looks like, and to see if there's any kind of caveats you need for the 3D printer to print it out correctly. And the other thing is it really worth printing out 3D? If you only need like 2 or 3 walls like that, you know, is it worth your effort? But if you need 100 walls, that's a different story, you know.
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
And like Mike said, like if you're doing clapboard siding, one thing to remember about printing on a 3D printer is a horizontal surface that hangs out in the air, like a deck sticking off of a wall, requires support material under it to help support it till it solidifies, and really till it cools down from the printing process. So a 45 degree or less cantilever doesn't usually need it or not need as much. So if you print like clapboard siding, you want to print the wall upside down. So instead of having the horizontal wall and the clapboard like this, you want it to be printed like this. So there's less support material needed here, if any at all, because the angle is pretty shallow on clapboard siding. So you can do it that way. But anytime you have open, unsupported areas, you need to, if the software doesn't do it, you can plan in support material, and all that's got to be removed after the fact. So it is still, a young technology for our hobby, but if you look on Shapeways, there's all kinds of stuff, and they're getting better and better materials all the time that give you smoother and smoother finishes. But like Ron Perez says here, 3D printing is still, to me, and like Mike said too, very expensive. Andrew says 3D is good for O scale, okay for HO, but really hard for N scale. With the newer materials, that problem is going to go away. To see a lot of N scale stuff available on Shapeways. That's a premier community for finding people that make things for your model railroad. But what, like Mike said, you could take, if you want to build, say, a clapboard side building, and you want to reproduce them, you can make the walls out of wood, put all your cuts and everything in, and mount your windows and stuff. Make an RTV silicon mold, like Ron Perez says, and then you can make them out of resin, pretty inexpensively. A couple of the clinics we've done up at the Amherst show, Miles has done that. We did a little like Watchman shack, and he literally made it in O scale out of wood clapboard siding with a window, put it in from T-sheet, made a silicon rubber mold, and then just poured all the walls out of clear resin, and then when he's done, clean the flash off, and you glue them together with CA, and you've got a building. It's a quick and easy way, especially if you make multiple molds. You can make the walls pretty quickly,
Well, that's the key there, Barry, too, is that you really need to make multiple molds in order to make it cost effective in terms of time, because if you only have one mold, it'll take you a long time to do 100 resin castings, because you can't really you can't pull it out while it's wet. You have to let it dry in the mold. But if you have 10 molds to do 100 casting, that takes you like a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah. If anybody wants to join in the live hangout here, we did post a link to the hangout in the posts for the show. So you can go on Facebook or on Google Plus and find our post. And there's a link for you to come on board the panel here if you would like. So get, more the merrier talking here. Yeah, it's on our YouTube posts on Google Plus, and I post on a couple of Facebook communities as well. So
you get to pontificate. You get to pontificate like us.
Yep. Sparky here is asking, do you have to be able to write computer programming to own or use a 3D printer? No, you can you like Ron said, you can use Google SketchUp or this bunch of other different 3D programs. SketchUp just happens to be a pretty good free program for basic modeling. But there's other 3D modeling programs. Essentially, you need a program that'll output what's called an STL file, a stereolithography file. That's what the 3D printers. And there's Mr. Andrew himself. Speak of the devil.
Oh yeah.
How you doing?
I think you guys know me, do you?
Yes, I know you, Andrew. I recognize that cranky Australian face of yours. I love it. So,
yeah, talk about the signal lights, by the way. There is a cheap way to do. You buy the Arduino Mini Pro. It's bare bones Arduino, and you can do it with signal. They're very cheap, economical, and you can do a lot with them.
Yeah. I mean, Chris has been talking about that on the Wednesday night shows, and definitely, I mean, if you're not too afraid of learning some basic programming, the Arduino. What's that?
It's not basic. It's C.
Let's see. Okay, but we did find out there's a program available called ArduBlock, which is like Blockly for the pickaxe, but it's for the Arduino. So it does the same thing. You assemble blocks of features, and then it writes the code out for you. So it's a lot easier for non-computer techie persons to use. But you can use the Arduino or the pickaxe to make simple flasher and lighting circuits like we've all talked about on our show here and on the Wednesday night show with Chris Healy. So you don't be too afraid to try anything, because trust me, I've learned a lot over my years in this hobby that once you decide I'm going to try it, it's not as hard as you think. My favorite thing is I always thought I was afraid of doing water until I learned how to do water from Dave Frary. Boom. What you got there, Andy?
That's a universal pick programmer.
Oh, there you go.
Right. You go to USB, and you buy all the different modules for all the different size chips you want to use. Right, and they just go into that. Very handy.
That makes it nice and easy. Yep.
Good.
Well, going back to the 3D printer, Barry, too, the best way to do a 3D printer is you join a train club where somebody does 3D printing all the time, and you tell them what you want, and they'll do it for you.
Exactly.
That's the best way to get it done.
Like our buddy Phil, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, yeah, Phil, I want one of these, one of those, one of the others. Oh.
Yeah, he comes up smelling like roses, gets a free 3D printer bot. We're like, okay.
Is that any better now?
Yeah, that sounds better, Andrew.
Yeah. Those universal programmers, they're cheap, and they come with the software. But the problem is you still got to learn it to be able to do a bit of programming to use them. But
well, that's where I mean, I know as powerful as the Arduino is, I still personally like the pickaxe because you can program in BASIC versus C. So for the beginning user, it's a lot easier that way, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But like Ron White said here,
don't
don't be afraid to try anything.
I just got the Atmel 328P-PU chip, was the one that's used in the Arduino.
Mm-hmm.
Not the square chip, the long one.
Right.
And just use that. I program it, and I take it out there and put it on my board. Quarter of the size of the Arduino Uno.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another way around. It's like you don't need a lot of accessories for it.
That's the one advantage.
It's got an internal clock. So you don't need to have an external clock if you don't want to.
Yeah,
all you got to do is have a regulated 5-volt power supply, and away you go.
Yeah, it's the same with the pickaxe. A simple 5-volt power supply and a handful of components, and you're ready to go. And the Arduino, the advantage there is you can expand it so much, Hacker space, eh? Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Hacker clubs or hacker spaces. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I use this program called or website called Meetup for doing photography hangouts and everything. We go out like Saturday we're doing a meetup at the Philadelphia Naval Base. There's all kinds of maker clubs on Meetup all over the country. So yeah, any one of those maker type conventions, clubs, they're into that kind of stuff where people build their own. So yeah, that would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, Meetup's actually pretty cool. I got a job from Meetup once.
There you go.
There's a lot of good YouTube videos too on how to make things using pickaxe and how to program them.
Oh
and a lot of them give you the links to different software or different forums.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, they're so easy to use in the end that just like anything else, like I said, with learning water, you got to be able to get over your fear of trying something. And then once you've actually tried it, I think you'd be surprised how much fun you can have with it. Now, Chris Rude here, he also mentioned that I should have thought of this because I just got it. Autodesk, who's a huge manufacturer of computer-aided design software, has a product called Fusion 360. It's a 3D solid modeling program. If you're a hobbyist, you can get it for free. So I've downloaded that to try in lieu of the free version of SketchUp because it is a true parametric solids modeling program where I can create a shape and just change the dimension on the shape and it would modify it. Whereas with ShapeUp, I have to drag it, and it's easy to resize, but it's not as easy to resize to specific sizes. And with Fusion 360, you can draw stuff in 2D and import it and use it to extrude into 3D. So if you have like a drawing program that can output AutoCAD's DWG file, you can bring it into Fusion 360 and do a very precise drawing. So another thing for people who are interested in crickets cutters, I bought a cricket cutter a while back. I haven't played with it in the hobby yet, but me and my fiance got it for doing stuff for our wedding. And I've downloaded a free program called Inkscape, which is a free version of something like Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW. And that can output the file that you need to bring into the Cricut. You need what's called an SVG file, but it doesn't have accurate drawing tools again. So I'm looking for something that can give me that accurate drawing so I can draw a building wall or something and send it over to the Cricut and have cut the wood for me. So I'll touch base with that at some point once I get some learning in on it. I haven't played with it much because I'm like 6 weeks out to the wedding or 7 weeks. And so I'm not doing much of model railroading right now.
I've been playing with a Silhouette the last couple days.
That's the
Silhouette
same thing.
Curio. And the Silhouette Studio actually goes down to several thousandths of an inch.
Yeah, that's the biggest flaw with the Cricut, Timothy, is their software is a web-based application, which is crap.
Well, I've got a Cricut too, and the Cricut I've got is cartridge bound.
Yeah.
It's locked into whatever's on the cartridge. You've got a design interface, but you can only design what's on that cartridge.
Yeah, so the newer one, you can, as long as you can import an SVG file, you can use whatever image you want. So we signed up for the Cricut Design Space subscription, but that means there is still some stuff in there you have to pay for. But like I said, with Inkscape, a lot of people on the forum say they can draw it in Inkscape, which like I said, is just like Adobe Illustrator, then export it to an SVG file and then bring it into the Cricut Design Space and cut it. So I'm going to be playing around with that to see how it works. But I'm glad to know what you told me about the Silhouette, because I mean, if the Cricut doesn't work out,
if you turn on Measure, when you draw a line across, it'll actually give you the length of the line in thousandths of an inch.
Oh, that's very good to know. Okay. Is that software come with the printer?
It's this. Silhouette Design Studio. It's actually free off their website.
I'm gonna have to check that out because if that can give me an SVG file, I could use that to import into the Cricut design space. Interesting.
Because I actually messed up the other day when I was Johnny knows this because me and him been discussing it. I actually cut my pieces about 40 thousandths too long that I was trying to cut because I didn't. When I designed it, I didn't take into account the thickness of the styrene that I was putting on the end caps.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, because I was making I-beams, making my own I-beams, and I was putting end caps on them, and then buttoning them up together. Well, that gives me 40 thousandths thick right there. Well, I wasn't taking into account of that when I was laying it out in the program.
Right.
When I got everything all glued up, I wound up almost a 1/4 inch wider than what my design originally was.
Good old tolerance creep, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm currently experimenting with using two methods. I'm using a 3D laser to score fine veneer and then cutting it out by hand. And the other thing I'm trying is I've got a CNC machine. I'm putting a very fine tip engraving tool in there, and I'm scoring my styrene that way, and then cutting it out.
See, the other thing about the Silhouette is you can emboss, deboss, stipple. You can put markers in it.
Yeah, we can just cut, score, and use markers in ours.
And then it actually can cut up to the one that we have is like I said, it's the Curio, and it will cut up to 2 millimeters thick material.
Interesting.
If you have the deep cut blade in it, so you can cut basswood, pretty thick basswood probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I got
a sheet of styrene knife.
I was cutting at 20 thousandths.
Yeah, I got a sheet of styrene, and I use the engraver to score brickwork into it in N scale.
That's a good thought because I know if I lower the pressure on mine, that's one thing with the Cricut is it has a pretty good pressure adjustment dial. I could actually go ahead and dial down the pressure and just scribe into the material. And rumor has that the pressure allows you to cut up to 40 thousandths basswood. In practice, from Miles Hale, it told me and Mike that realistically 30 thousandths is the limit to cutting through without multiple passes. And I don't know if he still will do it, but we were told the jury of Mount Albert Lumber, if you call them up and say, I want to order so many sheets of like siding or whatever, and I'm going to cut it on my Cricut, that he would sand it down to 30 thousandths for you. Now, I don't know if that's going to hold true with Fast Track's taking over. So
well, I was going to say he sold that to Tim Morris, and I guess all bets are off on that score. I would think, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Something else with the Silhouette is the thickness or the pressure. You can actually set that within the programming. You don't set it on the Silhouette like on the older Cricuts.
Right.
In the software, you choose a material, which styrene wasn't listed, so I had to guess, and I'd guess the thickness, and I had to guess the blade adjustment.
Right.
But I didn't have it set very deep, and it still scored the styrene 3/4 the way through. It didn't cut it all the way through because I didn't want it to cut it all the way through.
Right.
But it did score it 3/4 the way through at a lower setting.
Okay.
And it's all within the design studios where you set that at, but the blade, except for your blade depth, you set your pressure and everything within the design studio.
Yeah, all that, the pressure is the material set is on the dial on top of the Cricut.
Yeah.
And
how long do the blades last on those things?
Yeah.
I don't know how long they last on the Silhouette. Like I said, I just started playing with it the other day. But one thing I did notice about the Silhouette is, and I'm not sure if the Cricut does it, is the Cricut a constant cut? Because the Silhouette will pick up and restart.
Oh, no, this will do the same thing. I mean, essentially, all those devices are XY plotters. And they probably output G code, which is what plotters use for drawing, but it's not optimized. I've had it where we were making tags, right, to use on some table decorations, and literally it would draw 3 or 4 letters of a word in this one, then go all the way over here and draw 3 or 4 letters of that one, then go up here, draw 1 letter, come down here, finish it. It's totally non-optimized, but that's their software. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I use.
I noticed that about the silhouette too. Is it would, but you could the other thing is in that design studio on the silhouette, you could choose which lines or which items you want to cut first.
Oh yeah.
Like if you had a door and you wanted the windows cut out of the door first, you could change the line color of the window, set it over in the design studio as the first cut, and then you can use up to 2 tools.
Right. Okay.
Or you can have it set, cut it once with the first tool, and then come back and then cut the whole door out with the second tool. Because the way the Cricut or the silhouette is, the board that we have only has 2 sticky strips down the side. The whole board's not tacky like on the Cricut.
Yeah, that's one thing. I have to go get a low tack mat because the regular standard tack mat, when you're doing delicate stuff, it's a real pain in the butt to get stuff off of there. I bought a thin metal scraper to get things off. It can cut some incredibly detailed stuff out of thinner materials, but it's a bugger to get it up without mangling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but you can really work them to some pretty intricate detail. And I mean, if say you're cutting out, you want to build like roof brackets for a building or something, cut them out of several thinner pieces and then glue them together, and that way you might be able to get a little more detail out of them without burning up blades and making it work too hard. Because we know if you got a 6-inch wide bracket made of like a 6x6 wood, cut it out of something that's half that thickness or a quarter of that thickness and laminate the pieces together. You can cut them out of cardstock and glue them up and then paint them, and nobody will never know the difference, and it'll be a lot easier on your machine as well. I've learned a little bit about using the Cricuts, but like I said, I'm still learning every time I try something. I said, okay, how the heck do I pull this one off? And it works out pretty good, but the silhouette sounds pretty interesting too. Hey, Mike.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It also has a setting where you can set it to overcut.
Oh,
where you're cutting a straight line like a circular saw would do.
Yeah.
Or it actually cuts past where you need it to cut.
Yeah.
You can either set it to do that or not do that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to use. Mike, what was that thing we saw up in Amherst a couple years ago?
I'm going to have to refresh here. I half lost audio.
All right. You there, Mikey? I think I lost Mikey too. Oh, no, he's dead. He's refreshing too. Mike?
Yeah, back here. Yeah, okay. It just kind of lost you. You went all dark on me, Barry. Yeah. I don't know what the heck the deal was.
What was that thing that we saw? Remember we talked to those guys up at Amherst and Miles did a video of them with?
Oh, the Step Crafter. Yeah. It was like an XYZ machine, and a CRC machine or something like that. Yeah. But you had all the different heads, and they actually had a plastic extruder head that you could get for it. Obviously, you had the drill head and some other heads there too.
A laser cutter or a knife
laser cutter, right? Yeah, and a knife cutter, and kind of like a Dremel type cutter. You could actually Dremel to it too, I believe.
Yeah, that was their CNC machining head. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's Step Crafter.
Yeah, that's what I'm setting up on my CNC machine at the moment. Is multiple heads for different jobs.
Mm-hmm. What brand is your CNC machine, Andrew?
Mine's a Chinese special. And the mechanical side of things, the step motors is good, but the driver board inside are crap. Is the only way I can describe it. So I used that power supply, but I gutted it. rewired it.
I got you. Yeah, it's sometimes that's the problem with some of the Chinese stuff that's not very robust. But almost anything you can buy off of eBay, off a knockoff from China. You know. Yeah, that's the only problem I saw with the Stepcraft is it's not geared to the hobbyist because of its price point. I mean, the basic unit was like $1,300. I think it came with the CNC head, but it's a nice size bed. It's like over like a foot wide and like 18 inches long.
Mm-hmm.
And the neat thing is, you could buy different size beds up to like a 2 foot by 4 foot bed and use the same heads on it. It's more meant for commercial production of product, but I mean, at some point it'd be nice if they came out with a more inexpensive hobby version. I haven't kept up with what they're doing with it, but Dave showed up at a few of the hobby shows trying to push their way into the market, but the price point is, for mass appeal, is still pretty cheap compared to some of the things like using a $500 3D printer or a Silhouette or Cricut, you know. So it's got a ways to go, but I think it'll eventually make its way into our hobby.
Oh, I think the modeling bourgeoisie is using it already. Just the thought there, because it is kind of a really cool concept.
Yeah, it really is.
But the reality is, I think you're right. For the average Joe modeler, and for the amount of time they're using it, the price point's not where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Well, so my basic CNC machine is a Chinese 3040. It's 400 mil long by 300 mil wide. What's that in inches? I forget.
That's about a foot wide.
Probably about 8 inches, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 30 centimeters is
now.
Yeah, well, 250 millimeters would be 10 inches, right?
Yeah.
And a couple of forums I belong to, each of them are coming up with different designs for bolt-on add-ons to this machine. So you buy the basic machine, you gut the electronics out of it because that's rubbish. A Gerbil shielding is a drive from the USB port.
Oh, you use a Gerber port. Now there you go. That's nice and precise.
Right. And then you can stick different headers on it. Like I know you can buy a head. You can already buy a Cricut type head. So just unbolt the spindle motor and put the Cricut head on there.
Nice.
Some guys got 3Ds. So once you've got the basic machine, right, you got that working, and the X, Y, and Z properly, then you can buy the other, make up your own attachments for it.
Yeah, that's something it'd be interesting to see, you know, to build my own 3D printer. You know, there's so many versions of it you can buy and build on, or like Instructables and stuff like that. You know, but some of them are inexpensive enough now that are worth buying to play around with. I mean, some of the low-end models are down to as low as $300 now. I don't know how good their quality is, but you know, there's
a rip-off version of the Prusa i3 going on eBay at the moment. A lot of people buying it and they're saying for what you pay for it, it's a really good machine, but it does need some tinkering and fine adjusting to get it to work perfectly.
Yeah.
But you can use it straight off.
All right, I got a question.
So if you buy into those cheap Chinese ones, you got to be prepared to do a bit of tinkering to get it to work absolutely perfectly every time.
Yeah. So what's that, Johnny?
I got a question from other Hangouts. That's using the old computer power supplies for power and accessories on the layout. What do you think about that?
Oh, we're all for that.
Hey, it's a good short source of free power supplies, right? Using the old computer power supplies.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to do is on the 12-volt bus, you got to put in a
1157 light bulb.
Yeah, 150 watt, like no, not 150 watt, 150 ohm, like 5 watt, 10 watt resistor. To actually, you know what? You probably get away with a 2 watt resistor, but you basically need that just to give it enough current draw so it doesn't shut itself down.
Yeah, because one I converted a long time ago when I was doing RC planes and all
Mhm.
to run my battery charger. I watched a YouTube video and it had me put a 1157 taillight bulb
Oh yeah, that would work
on
too.
that
Yeah.
line, and
Yeah, you
that's
just
what
gotta.
keeps the power supply going because now it's drawing the load.
Right. Exactly. It
Yeah.
needs to draw an amp.
Yeah, so that's just you put that from the 12 volts to ground to make it draw enough power to. And some supplies you can just ground one of the 12-volt lines and it'll turn it on too. But the resistor is to keep it from drawing too much current, and because you look at the specs on like a 500-watt power supply, the 12-volt line can give you like 30 amps at 12 volts. So, yeah, you got to worry about how much power you could fry stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, just to
judging
let Sparky, Sparky know that's not a seal. That was Barry's dog.
Yeah. She's pretty old. She does kind of sound like a seal when she barks.
Or when she
must have
gets
heard her
excited.
noise. She's an 18-year-old golden retriever. I don't know how that dog is still kicking, but every day she gets up, goes down the steps, and goes to the bathroom. I got to help her back up the steps, but she's still kicking, that poor old girl.
Yeah. Well, it'd
there's
be
a
nice if you went out the door though, Barry.
Yeah, she does. She does.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you said she just goes down the stairs.
No, she goes down the
Takes a
steps,
whiz.
out the front porch.
Oh,
and
she
all.
goes. All right. Even when it's cold outside.
Oh yeah, but the problem
Oh,
is
okay.
sometimes she has a hard time getting back up. So I got to hold. As long as I hold her tail, she feels steady. I don't lift her by it, but it gives her enough steadiness that she'll come back up the steps by herself. But she's 18. I don't know how that dog didn't die 2 or 3 years ago.
You know what, though, Barry? This is a good business for us to get into. Geriatric dog care.
Geriatric dog care. Okay. Now, Johnny, we have now officially descended into the bottomless pit of weird stuff on Hangout.
Hey, he's
anyway,
your
I'm just
buddy.
looking at it.
He's
I'm
your
just looking at
buddy.
the question.
Yeah, we're both really good at that.
I just noticed that Dave McKay put a post there that if you convert a CNC machine out on a laser module to cut stuff with. Only drawback with that, to do any serious cutting with a CNC machine using a laser head, it's got to be greater than 5 watts. And then you're going into the realm of a glass CO2 tube. Now you can't have that tube moving.
Yeah,
they're fragile and they're water cooled.
Yeah, see that becomes a highly complicated mechanism then.
Yeah, then you got to do it by mirrors and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
a lot of
don't
people are
forget
using
the smoke too, right?
Yeah, you got
a lot of people are adding the laser head. A lot of people adding the CNC machine head to laser head to a CNC machine, using around about a 4 or 5 watt one to really deep score their material. Then they use that as a guide to cut it out by hand.
Oh yeah. Well, that's Stepcraft does. They have a small laser cutter head for theirs too. I don't remember how powerful it was, but yeah, that was one of the options they had in theirs too. So I mean, by the time you pay the base price of $1,300 and start adding the other modules, you can get into a pretty expensive system. But when you start looking at it, if you had to buy all those tools as dedicated pieces, you're probably going to spend a lot more money. If you have to buy that many, if you got money to buy them.
Not to mention the workshop real estate. I mean, if you had 5 different machines, that would just.
And you don't want to drop a CNC machine because they're damn heavy.
Yeah,
right.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, especially, that one big Stepcraft, man, that thing was the size of a 2x4 foot sheet of plywood. Well, it's about, I don't know, about 5 inches thick, plus the gantry overhead that slides back and forth with the heads on it. That thing could probably smash your foot into little tiny splinters.
That would stub your toesy woesies, Barry.
Yeah, big time, dude.
Well, I turn my camera on and I'll show you.
Oh yeah, see what you got there, Andrew. Oh, look at that.
That's my tiny little laser engraver.
Oh, nice.
Right? And it's basically just a modified Arduino on the back of it.
Yeah.
Right? No, this has got a 2-watt laser head on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I can score stuff and cut it out.
Right.
Now they're cheap. You buy them for about $200 on eBay from China.
Wow. You could, if you wanted to, you could probably upgrade the laser if you wanted to.
Yeah, then you have power consumption problems.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty cool, Andrew. I like that.
It comes with a kit, and we've got reasonably good English instructions to put together.
They're pretty good. They know who they're selling to. They're not going to, do too bad on their English translation.
Miles Hale had one that he bought it from a Australian distributor.
Oh, wow.
It was a Chinese CNC machine similar to this, and he had problems with his main board. He couldn't get to work, so I worked out that the main board was buggered.
So
while he was on a live show one night, I rung up the supplier, had a word with them. They said, "Yeah, get him to drop me an email, and they'll send him a new board." That afternoon.
Interesting.
So,
well, sometimes you could get bad components like that. So that's very possible.
oh yeah. I spent 2 years buying a weekly magazine, which had a 3D printer, which came as magazines and a part, and you built it over a course of 2 years.
Oh wow, that's
So
interesting.
when I wanted to use it, damn thing didn't work.
Yeah, if anybody ever wants to really get into making their own kind of stuff like that, I mean, I don't know if you ever heard of a website called Instructables. There's so many.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, there's so many projects on there. I mean, I've actually.
Hackaday have got was it Element 14?
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple of videos there on how to build your own laser engraver.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen 3D printers, laser engravers. Heck, I saw one guy there that gave away the 3D files to print a replica of the Stargate from Stargate SG-1, and then he had a motorized design with sound effects and LEDs that was all controlled by an Arduino. So it would spin and light up all the chevrons and rotate the gate wheel back and forth, and then at the end it had the sound sequence when the gate would connect to another planet. It was rather interesting.
Yeah, look,
So there's
a lot of guys.
I like somebody doing for Atlantis.
A lot of guys are designing and building their own 3D printers using the extruded aluminium tubing.
Yeah, it's those T-rails or whatever, right?
Yeah, but basically what this is.
Yeah.
So you can do it on the cheap because
Andrew, that's not a thermonuclear.
There's a few different mobs sell the parts. You just work out. You just design what side you want it.
Right.
So I want the aluminium such and such a size. Buy the T-piece and the angle brackets bolted all together, and the slider plates.
Yeah, that's pretty.
I'm starting to build a larger.
You just gave me a good idea.
3D thing. I'm building a larger CNC machine. I've got a metre long piece of extruded aluminium with the runner on it, motor.
See, that's what I need. I need to make a camera slider for my camera. That's exactly what it is. Some of that T-track that slides.
Yeah,
Andrew,
what's that?
That other device you were holding up there a while ago, Andrew, looked about like somebody's homemade thermonuclear device.
Shh, Google's listening.
Well, they get a lot of yellow
Hey, he's
down there.
Australian. They can do whatever they want down there in Australia.
They got a lot of yellow.
They don't have the CIA breathing down their neck.
Let's see if we got any more interesting questions up here in the in our chat.
Yeah, Tim, it's not the first time I've blown up my letterbox.
Nice.
All right, John. Well, it seems we kind of slowed down on questions here, so it's 10 o'clock. So we're going to bring this show to a close for tonight. We'll be back. I will be out of all of the YouTube Model Builders stuff next month with things coming up for my wedding, but I'll be back after that in July. So, but our fine crew here will be carrying on. I'll be coming up in a few weeks on the next chapter of our fine scale build. Mike has joined us along with Miles and Andy and myself. So I'll be starting on a new S-scale building. And as I get along with it, I'll show you a progress on what I'm working on here. I've been cutting some foam blocks up. I don't know if I'm going to mold them or use them for mold masters or paint them and try them the way they are to make a stone breakwater for a project I'm going to be doing for the Fine Scale Expo this fall for the contest room. So I'll fill everybody in as I make some progress on that. I wanted to thank everybody.
Some advice on your.
What's that, Andrew?
Some advice on your wedding, mate.
Yes.
Run while you've got the chance. Run, boy, run.
Dude, he got that advice twice already before. This is the third time he's getting
it. Third time's the charm, brother. Third time's the charm.
You ain't learned your lesson yet?
Dude, no, he has not. It's like they're always really cool until you put the ring on the finger, dude. Then they change, man.
Nah. Yeah. Most of them do.
Most of them do. Okay.
Every now and then.
Yeah, I got lucky with mine. She's not changed a whole lot since we got married. We've been married for almost 8 years, or 9 years.
Put it this way, fellow photographer, fellow Philadelphia Eagles fan, and loves model trains. Come on, that's the
She just corrected me. 10 years.
Wow, dude.
Oh.
Guess who's getting shut down tonight?
Yeah, that's another dent in the frying pan.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do what my daddy told me to. Love them and leave them and bring your kids up the same way.
There you go. All right, so you know what? Tony just made a comment here. We're going to have to. I want to see about getting Dave Ferrari involved and coming on here one time, because Andy did mention about us maybe. Since he's going to the Fine Scale Expo this fall, Mike and I will be there, that we may try and do like a round table type discussion with some of the manufacturers that are there that we're friends with. And I don't know if Dave Ferrari is going to be there or not. If he is, I'll try and rope him into that. See if we can get him involved for a little hangout and discussion. Dave's an interesting man. Got to know him over the years, so definitely would look forward to having him on something like this, some point. That might be a good something for the live show sometime. But he's getting old, and he's not involved in the hobby as much as he used to. But I still think he likes doing it. So.
But he invented HON30 though, Barry.
Well, don't forget Bob Hayden. Do not leave Bob Hayden out.
Bob who?
Bob Hayden. The Carabasset and Dead River. Do not forget.
Oh, you mean Narrow Gauge Gazette Archives guy.
Exactly.
There you go. I know him. That's why I know him as.
Thank you all for coming along and watching tonight. Yes, Tony, that is in Pennsylvania this year. The Fine Scale Expo will be in Altoona, PA, heart of Pennsylvania Railroad territory, now Norfolk Southern. So if anybody would love to come along, join us. It's a fun time. You can learn an amazing amount of information in 3 days. And if
plus the main Norfolk Southern locomotive shop is down in Altoona. That's
I'm hoping we get a tour to that. That would be nice.
That would be nice if they could spring that. There's also the Altoona Memorial Railroaders Museum. They have a lot of nice artifacts there.
And Horseshoe Curve's nearby.
Horseshoe Curve's nearby. You got the tunnels of Gallitzin on the other direction. Yep. And, of course, downtown Altoona, you could go over the top of the main, see the trains that go by.
Yep, there used to be a bed and breakfast right over the tracks, but it's closed now, but you can still go there and look for trains. So.
Well, that was up in Gallitzin, and actually you could go to the library in Gallitzin to watch the tunnels from the other side.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
If we start getting manufacturers coming on here, I might be able to go talk to Rick Rideout from Pike stuff.
Oh, interesting.
He
Okay.
lives. He's here in town.
No,
Oh,
very
okay.
cool.
Well, that's something to think about, Tim. Yeah, because
So I went over. I went over
every
and
now
seen
and
his
then it might be
manufacturing.
interesting to do that.
Hmm.
Went over to see his manufacturing facility one time. He used to have a huge L&N layout.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But he said it's not been ran for years.
That's a shame. Yeah, there was a
So
guy that owned a hobby shop about 45 minutes away from me. And he had a giant American Flyer layout in his basement, and he never did anything with it. Years ago, people used to go down there and run it, and it just sat there and died. It's a shame.
apparently it was happened to his layout too. He used to have a club that come down and ran it with him and everything, and he got so busy with his business of making plastic pieces
Yeah,
uh, on the side of what he was doing for the modeling, because he not only does the stuff for Pike stuff, Rick's products,
yeah,
uh, but then he in the Small Town USA or whatever it is, the other brand that he had.
yeah. Well, I understand that. I mean,
Uh,
that's how I moved out of engineering into computers, because I had to take care of the computers all the time for our engineering systems. I did it as a hobby at home, worked on all kinds of people's computers, and that made me to make the decision to go into computers. Now, I don't want to touch anybody's computer at home but my own. You know.
well, he does other he manufactures like the parts for mini blinds and stuff now too,
Yeah, see,
and
that
automotive
becomes
parts, and
yeah, huge job. So after a while, it
yeah,
takes up a good chunk of your life.
he's got a pretty good size.
Barry, I've posted a link to the
Uh.
after show if anyone wants to go to the after show.
All righty. Well, we'll close
got
on
pretty good
down
size.
here. So, we will be back again. I'm not sure what we're doing on the tech show for next month, because I won't be around. But our schedule's been updated for May and June right now on the website, like Johnny said earlier. So please feel free to go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com and check out the schedule. Check out all the stuff for YouTube Model Builders Live, the Hangouts, and the eMag. And look forward to having you all back again.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank everybody for hopping on board with the panel and talking. All our people who entered information in the chat. So everybody, take care, enjoy, and we'll see you next time. All right.
Okay.
All right, take care.